You know what the issues are, right? It's aging housing stock, it's loss of subsidy, it's maybe deteriorating buildings, it's maybe poorly constructed buildings, it's maybe units that don't fit your current demographics. It's all of these problems together. And I think co-ops are stuck. There are two conflicting things that housing cooperatives try to do, or I think they should try to do. One is to serve the needs of their existing membership, but I think there's a bigger value than that housing cooperatives should be focusing on, and that is to be good stewards of the housing that you're occupying and that you're running and that you're maintaining for the future. I consider that to be the highest priorities for housing cooperatives now, is to be good stewards of that housing stock.
My predominant theme of what I think co-ops need to do and what they're facing in the future is that they really kind of need to get real. They need to get real about all the deferred maintenance that everybody already knows about. They need to get real about the end of operating agreements that everybody already knows about. Some issues that come up within each of those issues. So in terms of getting real about maintenance and repair and replacement of aging infrastructure, we've deferred rate maintenance. We already know that. We've done it to keep housing charges low. We've done it to serve our members. We kind of need to get real about that. It's not going to work. For building assessment studies and massive repair and replacement projects, and we kind of need to get real about how much that costs and where that money comes from, because as our operating agreements end, that comes entirely from housing charges, and that means we have to get real about what our housing charges are. We need to get real that housing co-op is a business and needs to run like one. I understand what you said about nonprofit versus business, but no nonprofit can continue to do good without also acting as a business. You can meet the needs of the organization long-term. With the roof project that's come up with my co-op, I sat down and did some analysis about what's coming, about risks. It looks like we're going to have to borrow. It's a big project. I'm sure many of you have been through the same process. This isn't new stuff. And what I started to see was that the cost of maintaining the building, even after our operating agreement is over, even after our mortgage is paid off, I've been hearing stories about how our housing charges are going to go down. No. We'll be lucky if we can maintain them, because we have to get real about also serving our members and making sure that our stewardship to our members is intact and that we can maintain some subsidy.
Like what are the presenting problems today? And I had those explained to me yesterday by the new chief housing officer for the city of Vancouver. I was in there talking to him about housing projects, and he's been around town. He's just landed in the job a couple of weeks ago from a sort of fancy consultancy in the UK. So his observation about housing co-ops, and indeed housing associations anywhere in Vancouver, in British Columbia, affordable housing in New West has, somewhere over 3,000 units now. He says, they're small. They're so small, right? How do they survive? To him telling me yesterday is that the capitalization of the sector and its ability to generate net revenue and its focus on generating net revenue off of that capital is pretty much non-existent.
I think the sector across the country needs to focus on our assets and do some visioning for where we need to be and how we're going to get there and how we're going to cooperate together to get there, and how co-ops are going to do the work that they need to do in their own co-op, but how the sector organizations are going to need to do the work that they need to do in order to get there. So I'm hopeful. I think the individual co-op should really be demanding of their sector organizations to start planning and thinking for the future. Those are the two things that I think should happen. Should happen. Co-ops have to plan for the end of their operating agreement to get their long-term sustainability in place. And the sector needs to come up with that vision for what's the next chapter in the co-op story for housing in this country.
I think that one of the things that we should do rather than just addressing a problem sort of straight on and trying to deal with this and trying to deal with this and trying to deal with this is to look elsewhere and identify models that are notably successful in a long term and perhaps try to restructure ourselves in that sort of form. And quite frankly, the housing co-op sector is atomized, but it is kind of like a school of goldfish, right? If we all decide to turn in the same direction, the effect can be quite spectacular.